transport shuttle touched down on Archon Prime at exactly noon. Jiwoo pressed her face against the window and stared at the massive space station that would be her home for the next 4 years. The station was bigger than anything she had ever seen, even bigger than the colony ships that brought humans to the outer rim. Thousands of lights blinked across its surface like stars. She grabbed her bag and followed the other new students through the airlock. The moment she stepped into the main corridor, Jiwoo realized just how small she was compared to everyone else. Most of the aliens around her stood at least 7 feet tall. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few looked like they were made of living crystal. They all stared at her as she walked past. Jiwoo kept her head up and her expression calm. Her father had taught her that appearing confident was half the battle. She had spent 19 years on Busan Colony learning how to survive. This was just another challenge. The academy coordinator, a floating jellyfish-like creature, assigned her to room 847. When Jiwoo found it, the door was already open. Inside, a pale blue alien sat on one of the beds. She had 4 arms and large, gentle eyes. "Hello," the alien said in perfect Earth standard. "I am Hana. You must be my roommate." "I am Jiwoo," she replied, setting her bag down. "From Earth." "I know," Hana said with a smile. "You are the first human in the combat strategy program. Everyone is talking about it." Jiwoo felt her stomach tighten. "What are they saying?" Hana looked away. "Some good things, some bad things. Many species think humans are too weak to be here. They call your kind softlings." Softlings. Jiwoo tested the word. She did not like it. "There is something else you should know," Hana continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. "There is a student here named Velcros. He is from the Draxian Empire. His father is High Commander Velcros the Conqueror. He is very powerful and very cruel. He likes to bully students from weaker species." "Thanks for the warning," Jiwoo said. She started unpacking her things. Among her clothes she found the small photo of her family. Her mother, her father, and her younger brother stood in front of their home on Busan. They were all smiling. Jiwoo placed it on her desk where she could see it every day. The next morning, Jiwoo went to the cafeteria for breakfast. The room was enormous, with hundreds of students eating at long tables. She got her food and looked for a place to sit. Most tables were full. The few empty seats had students who deliberately turned away when she approached. Finally, Jiwoo found a spot at the end of a table. She sat down and started eating. The food was strange but not terrible. She was halfway through her meal when she heard loud footsteps behind her. "Well, well," a deep voice said. "What do we have here?" Jiwoo turned and saw the largest reptilian alien she had ever encountered. He stood almost 7 feet tall with dark green scales and yellow eyes. 3 other aliens stood behind him, all of them big and mean-looking. This had to be Velcros. "A human," Velcros said, leaning down to stare at her. "In my academy. Tell me, little softling, did you get lost on your way to the nursery?" His friends laughed. Other students at nearby tables stopped eating to watch. Jiwoo looked at him calmly. She did not say anything. She simply took another bite of her food. Velcros's eyes narrowed. "Did you not hear me, human? I asked you a question." "I heard you," Jiwoo said quietly. "I just did not think it deserved an answer." More laughter, but this time from different students. Velcros's face darkened. He reached out and knocked her tray off the table. Food splattered across the floor. "Maybe that will help you remember your manners," he said. Jiwoo stood up slowly. She was barely 5.5 feet tall. Velcros towered over her. She looked up at him with steady eyes. "Thank you for the lesson," she said, her voice neutral. "I will clean this up." She knelt down and started picking up the broken dishes. Velcros stared at her for a moment, clearly expecting a different reaction. When she did not give him one, he snorted and walked away with his friends. Hana rushed over to help. "That was Velcros," she whispered. "Are you okay?" "I am fine," Jiwoo said, but inside her mind was working. She had dealt with bullies before. The key was understanding what they wanted. Velcros wanted a reaction. He wanted fear or anger. She had given him neither. That would make him more aggressive. She needed to be ready. Over the next 3 days, Velcros escalated his harassment. He tripped her in the hallway. She caught herself and kept walking. He destroyed her datapad by accidentally stepping on it. She got a new one and said nothing. He spread rumors that humans were cowards who could not fight. She ignored them all. The other students watched with interest. Some joined in the mockery. Others stayed silent, afraid of becoming Velcros's next target. The academy instructors noticed, but did nothing. Jiwoo learned that the academy believed in a natural hierarchy. The strong dominated the weak. That was how things worked in the galaxy. On the 4th day, Instructor Kale announced a combat simulation class. The old Zenthari instructor stood at the front of the room and explained the exercise. Students would partner up and fight using neural weapons in a holographic arena. The weapons were not lethal, but they would hurt. The purpose, Instructor Kale said, is to teach you how to assess an opponent and adapt your strategy. Before Jiwoo could find a partner, Velcros stood up. "Instructor," he said loudly, "I would like to partner with the human." The classroom went silent. Everyone turned to look at Jiwoo. Instructor Kale studied them both. "Are you certain, Velcros? The human is much smaller than you." "That is exactly why I want to partner with her," Velcros said with a cruel smile. "She needs to learn what real combat looks like. I will teach her gently." His friends laughed. Most of the class joined in. Instructor Kyle looked at Jiwoo. "Do you accept this pairing?" Jiwoo met Velcros's eyes across the room. She saw arrogance there, and cruelty and certainty that he would win. He expected her to be afraid. He expected her to back down. "Yes," Jiwoo said calmly. "I accept." Velcros grinned. "Excellent. Tomorrow, little human, I will show you why your species should have stayed on Earth." That evening, Jiwoo sat in her room doing her breathing exercises. Hana paced back and forth, worried. "You should report him," Hana said. "What he is doing is wrong." "It is also expected," Jiwoo replied, her eyes closed. "The academy wants to see what I can do. Velcros is giving them that opportunity. But he is so much bigger and stronger than you. He will hurt you." Jiwoo opened her eyes and smiled. "Size is not everything, Hana. Humans did not become a spacefaring species by being the biggest or the strongest. We survived because we learned how to adapt. We learned how to think." She stood and stretched, her muscles loose and ready. In her mind, she was already fighting Velcros. She could see his movements, predict his patterns. He was strong and fast, but he was also predictable. He relied on his size and power. He had probably never faced an opponent who used those things against him. "Tomorrow," Jiwoo said quietly, "Velcros is going to learn something important about humans. Sometimes the quiet ones are the most dangerous." Hana looked at her friend and saw something she had not noticed before. Behind Jiwoo's calm exterior was something hard and sharp, something that had been forged in the tough conditions of a frontier colony, something that had been trained by soldiers who knew what real fighting meant. "I will bet on you," Hana said suddenly. Jiwoo laughed. "You might be the only one." "Then I will win a lot of money," Hana replied with a grin. Jiwoo returned to her meditation, focusing her mind for what was coming. Tomorrow, the galaxy would see that humans were not softlings. They were survivors, and survivors knew how to fight. The combat arena was packed with students. Word had spread fast about the match between Velcros and the human girl. Everyone wanted to see what would happen when the strongest bully in the academy faced the weakest species in the galaxy. Jiwoo walked into the arena wearing the standard combat suit. The suit was designed to work with the neural weapons and monitor damage. If a student took too much damage, the suit would shut down and end the match. She looked small and fragile next to the other students filing in. Velcros entered from the opposite side. He wore his combat suit like armor, and he had painted his family symbol on the chest in red. His 3 friends walked behind him, cheering and shouting. The crowd erupted in applause and roars of approval. Instructor Kale stood in the center of the arena. The old Zenthari raised his hands for silence. "The rules are simple," he announced, his voice carrying through the space. "Each fighter will use standard neural weapons. First to land 3 solid hits wins. The weapons are not lethal, but they will cause pain. Safety protocols are active. If I determine either fighter is in serious danger, I will stop the match. He looked at both competitors. This is a learning exercise, not a blood sport. Fight with honor. Velcros grinned. Of course, instructor. Jiwoo simply nodded. The two fighters moved to opposite ends of the arena. Jiwoo picked up her neural staff, a long weapon that could deliver stunning strikes. Velcros chose a neural hammer, a heavy weapon that matched his strength. Before the match started, Velcros decided to put on a show. He walked to a practice dummy at the side of the arena. With one massive strike of his hammer, he shattered it completely. Pieces of the dummy scattered across the floor. The crowd went wild. Students cheered and stomped their feet. Velcros beat his chest and roared, showing his sharp teeth. That is what happens to anyone who challenges a Draxian warrior, he shouted. Then he pointed at Jiwoo. You are next, little human. Betting started immediately among the students. Jiwoo could hear them calling out odds. 50-1 against her. 100-1. No one except Hana was betting on the human to win. Jiwoo ignored all of it. She moved to her starting position and began her warm-up routine. She stretched her legs, rolled her shoulders, and did slow breathing exercises. In her mind, she returned to the training halls on Busan Colony. She remembered her father, who had been a soldier before becoming a diplomat. He had started training her when she was 6 years old. Size is not everything, Jiwoo, he had told her. A small person who knows how to fight can defeat a large person who only knows how to be strong. You must be like water. Water flows around obstacles. Water finds the weak points. Water is soft, but it can cut through stone. Her mother had taught her different lessons. Her mother was a negotiator, someone who understood people and their patterns. Watch everything, her mother had said. People tell you who they are through their actions. The loud ones are often hiding fear. The cruel ones have been hurt themselves. Understanding your opponent is more important than defeating them. Jiwoo opened her eyes and looked at Velcros across the arena. She watched how he moved, how he held his weapon, how he played to the crowd. He was strong and fast, but he was also predictable. He fought the way he lived, with overwhelming force and no subtlety. Fighters ready, Instructor Kale called out. Jiwoo took her stance. Staff held loosely in both hands. Velcros crouched low, hammer raised high. Begin! Velcros charged immediately. He covered the distance between them in seconds faster than Jiwoo expected. His hammer came down like a falling mountain. Jiwoo stepped to the side. The hammer struck the floor where she had been standing, creating a small crater. Before Velcros could recover, she moved behind him and tapped him lightly with her staff. But she did not activate the weapon. She was testing him, learning his recovery time. Velcros spun and swung horizontally. Jiwoo ducked under the strike and rolled away. The crowd murmured. The human was faster than she looked. For the next 2 minutes, the pattern continued. Velcros attacked with power and fury. Jiwoo evaded everything, never staying in one place long enough to be hit. She used her smaller size to her advantage, slipping through spaces that Velcros could not follow. The crowd grew restless. This was not the quick, brutal victory they had expected. Velcros was breathing hard now. He was strong, but all that muscle required energy. His attacks were becoming slower, wilder. Stand still and fight, he snarled. Why? Jiwoo asked calmly. This is working fine for me. That made Velcros even angrier. He abandoned any pretense of technique and simply charged, swinging his hammer in wide, powerful arcs. He was trying to overwhelm her with pure aggression. Jiwoo watched carefully. There, she saw it. Every time Velcros made his biggest swings, he overextended slightly. He put all his weight forward, leaving himself off balance for just a moment. She waited for the right moment. Velcros launched another massive overhead strike. This time, instead of dodging away, Jiwoo stepped forward into his space. She used her staff to redirect his hammer slightly to the left. The weapon crashed into the floor beside her. With Velcros off balance, Jiwoo moved behind him. She swept his front leg with her staff while pushing his shoulder. Basic technique, the kind taught to beginners. But it worked. Velcros, with all his strength and momentum, fell hard. Before he could recover, Jiwoo touched her staff to the weak point between his shoulder blades. She activated the weapon. The neural pulse hit Velcros' nervous system. His muscles locked up for a second, sending a wave of pain through his body. The arena's scoring system beeped. First point to Jiwoo, Instructor Kale announced. The arena went completely silent. No one could believe what they had just seen. The human had scored first. Velcros climbed to his feet, his face dark with rage. You got lucky, he said. Maybe, Jiwoo replied. She returned to her starting position, staff held ready. Velcros was not playing to the crowd anymore. He was not trying to look good. He just wanted to hurt her. The second exchange was faster and more vicious. Velcros mixed up his attacks using feints and combinations. He was actually trying now, using the training he had received from elite Draxian warriors. But Jiwoo adapted. Every attack taught her something new about how he moved, how he thought. She started to anticipate him, reading his body language before he even made his move. Velcros grabbed a piece of debris from the broken dummy and threw it at her head. Jiwoo deflected it with her staff. While she was distracted, Velcros closed the distance and swung at her ribs. Almost. The hammer passed so close that Jiwoo felt the air move. She twisted away and used Velcros' own momentum to throw him again. A classic judo technique her father had drilled into her thousands of times. This time when he fell, Jiwoo was ready. She struck the nerve cluster in his left leg. The neural weapon fired. Second point to Jiwoo, Instructor Kale called. The crowd erupted in noise. Some students were cheering now. Others were shouting in disbelief. The betting odds were shifting rapidly. Velcros' friends were shouting advice and encouragement. Velcros himself looked like he was about to explode with fury. His honor, his family name, his entire identity was built on being the strongest. Losing to a human, to a softling, was unthinkable. 2-0, Jiwoo said quietly. Do you want to stop? That was the worst thing she could have said. Offering mercy to a Draxian warrior was the ultimate insult. Velcros threw aside his hammer and charged with his bare hands. He was beyond technique now, beyond strategy. He just wanted to tear her apart. Instructor Kale stepped forward, ready to stop the match, but Jiwoo held up her hand. I am okay, Instructor. Let us finish this. She looked at Velcros, really looked at him, and understood what her mother had taught her. He was not just angry. He was terrified. His entire world was built on being superior to others. If a human could beat him, what did that mean about everything he believed? For a moment, Jiwoo felt sorry for him. But only for a moment, because Velcros had bullied countless students. He had made them feel small and weak and worthless. He had earned whatever happened next. Velcros launched himself at her in a final, desperate attack. He was fast and strong and completely committed. There was no defense, no plan, just raw fury. Jiwoo planted her feet and made her decision. Time to end this. This is for every student you ever bullied, she said, and then she moved. The arena clock showed 30 seconds remaining in the match. Velcros charged forward like an angry bull, all his power focused on destroying the small human who had embarrassed him twice. Jiwoo did not run this time. She moved forward to meet him. What happened next took exactly 3 seconds, but to everyone watching it seemed to happen in slow motion. As Velcros reached for her, Jiwoo dropped her staff. Her hands moved in a blur. She struck 7 precise points on his body in rapid succession. The first hit was to his extended wrist, redirecting his grab. The second was to the inside of his elbow, making his arm bend. The third and fourth were to nerve clusters in his ribs. The fifth was to his solar plexus, driving the air from his lungs. The sixth was to his knee, buckling his leg. The seventh was to the side of his neck. Each strike was perfectly placed, hitting points where nerves ran close to the surface. Jiwoo used techniques that had been developed over thousands of years on Earth, refined by countless martial artists. Pressure points, nerve strikes, ways for a smaller person to shut down a larger opponent without causing permanent damage. Velcros' nervous system overloaded. His muscles stopped responding to his brain. He collapsed forward, still conscious but completely unable to move. His body simply shut down. The entire arena went silent. Not a single student made a sound. Jiwoo stood over Velcros, breathing hard. She looked down at him with no anger in her eyes, no triumph. Just calm certainty. Point 3 to Jiwoo, Instructor Kale said quietly. Match over, the crowd exploded. Half the students were cheering. The other half were too shocked to react. Aliens were pushing forward to see better, shouting questions. The medical team rushed onto the arena floor. Jiwoo knelt beside Velcros. The neural shutdown would wear off in a few minutes. He was not injured, just temporarily paralyzed. She helped roll him onto his side so he could breathe easier. You are fine, she told him calmly. Your nervous system will reset soon. There is no permanent damage. Velcros's eyes were wide with shock and fury. He could not speak, could not move, could only stare at the human who had defeated him so completely. On Earth, Jiwoo said, loud enough for nearby students to hear, we have a saying, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. She stood up and addressed the crowd. We also learned that true strength is not about dominating others. It is about protecting those who cannot protect themselves. She offered her hand to help Velcros up, as sensation started returning to his body. Velcros, his pride shattered, slapped her hand away and crawled toward the exit. His friends rushed to help him, their faces showing their own shame. The mighty Velcros, son of the Conqueror, had been destroyed in 30 seconds by a human girl. Instructor Kale raised his hand for silence. That was remarkable, he said, studying Jiwoo with new eyes. Remarkable technique, remarkable control, and remarkable restraint. You could have seriously injured your opponent. Instead, you disabled him without causing lasting harm. That is the mark of a true warrior. He turned to address the crowd. Let this be a lesson to all of you. Never judge an opponent by their size or species. Judge them by their skill and their will to fight. The crowd began to disperse, students talking excitedly among themselves. Many looked at Jiwoo with new respect. Others looked at her with fear. A few looked at her with something that might have been hatred. Hana pushed through the crowd and hugged Jiwoo tightly. You won! I told you I should bet on you. I just won enough credits to buy food for a month. Jiwoo smiled tiredly. Good, you can buy me dinner. I am starving. But before they could leave, a message appeared on Jiwoo's communicator. She was summoned to an emergency faculty meeting. Her presence was required immediately. In the Academy's faculty chamber, 7 senior instructors sat in a semicircle. In the center seat sat Director Archon Vex, an ancient being whose species was so old that most people had forgotten their original name. The director was humanoid in shape but seemed to be made of liquid starlight. Jiwoo entered and stood at attention. You summoned me, Director? We did, Archon Vex said in a voice that sounded like distant thunder. What we just witnessed was unexpected. Explain your training. Jiwoo carefully described her background, the military training her father had given her. The martial arts traditions of Earth, developed over thousands of years. The physical conditioning required to survive on a frontier colony with higher gravity than standard Earth normal. I see, the director said. The intelligence reports on humanity were incomplete. We were told your species was physically weak, lacking in natural weapons or armor. We were told you were fragile. We are fragile compared to many species, Jiwoo admitted, but we are not weak. There is a difference. Humans survived on a death world for millions of years. We learned to adapt or die. We learned to use tools, strategy, and cooperation to overcome stronger predators. One instructor, a large insectoid, clicked its mandibles in concern. This level of combat capability should have been disclosed. You have essentially infiltrated this academy under false pretenses. With respect, Jiwoo said firmly, I disclosed everything on my application. It is not my fault if the readers did not understand what human combat training means. We did not lie. You made assumptions. Instructor Kale, who had been silent until now, spoke up. She is correct. I reviewed her application file. She listed her training clearly. We simply did not realize how effective human martial arts could be. That is our failure, not hers. The faculty argued among themselves while Jiwoo stood quietly. Some wanted her expelled. They said she was too dangerous, that her presence would disrupt the academy's social structure. Others wanted to keep her as an example of unexpected potential. Finally, Director Vex raised a hand for silence. The matter will remain under review. For now, Jiwoo may continue her studies, but this incident will be reported to the Galactic Council. Earth will need to provide more complete information about human capabilities. Yes, Director, Jiwoo said. As she left the chamber, she felt the weight of what she had done settling on her shoulders. She had not just defeated Velcros. She had exposed something humanity had been trying to keep quiet. Humans were dangerous. Humans were warriors pretending to be diplomats. Her communicator buzzed. A message from Ambassador Taeyang, the senior Earth representative on Archon Prime. He wanted to see her immediately. The ambassador's office was located in the human diplomatic section of the station. When Jiwoo entered, she found a stern-looking man in his 50s studying multiple news feeds. Every screen showed footage of her fight with Velcros. Sit down, Jiwoo, Ambassador Taeyang said. She sat. Do you know what you have done? He asked. I defended myself against a bully, sir. You exposed Earth's hand, he said, turning to face her. For 15 years we have been trying to appear non-threatening to the galaxy. We wanted to be seen as peaceful, diplomatic, harmless. We wanted time to establish ourselves without making enemies. And now in 30 seconds you have shown them that humans are fighters. I am sorry, Ambassador. He sighed and sat down across from her. No, I am the one who should apologize. We asked young people like you to hide who you are. That was unfair. And perhaps it was time for the truth to come out anyway. He pulled up more news feeds. The fight was already spreading across the galactic networks. Human defeats Draxian noble in combat, one headline read. Earth's hidden warriors revealed, said another. The Draxian Empire is furious, the ambassador continued. High Commander Velcros has lodged a formal complaint. They are demanding your expulsion and a formal apology from Earth. What will happen? I do not know yet. But Jiwoo, you need to understand something. You are not just a student anymore. You are a symbol. Every human in the galaxy is going to be judged by what you do next. No pressure. Jiwoo felt sick to her stomach. She had just wanted to stop a bully. She had not meant to start an interstellar incident. What should I do? Ambassador Tae Yang looked at her for a long moment. Be yourself. Be the person your parents raised you to be. Show them that humans are strong but not cruel, capable but not aggressive. That is the best thing you can do for Earth now. When Jiwoo finally returned to her room, she found Hana waiting with food and worried questions. She also found dozens of messages on her communicator. Some were supportive. Many were threatening. A few were from other students who had been bullied by Velcros, thanking her for standing up to him. One message stood out. It was from Velcros himself. This is not over, human. You have made an enemy of the Draxian Empire. My father will make sure your entire species pays for what you did today. Jiwoo deleted the message and sat down heavily on her bed. Through the window she could see the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, her home, her family. She wondered what they would think when they heard about what happened. Her communicator buzzed again. This time it was a general announcement to all students. Director Vex had declared a mandatory academy-wide combat tournament, starting in 1 week. All species would participate in teams of 3. Jiwoo understood immediately. This was a test. The Academy wanted to see if her victory over Velcros was luck or skill. They wanted to see what humans could really do, and Velcros would certainly enter. This would be his chance for revenge. The day of the semi-final match arrived with unusual tension. The grand arena had never been fuller. Every seat was occupied and millions more beings stood in the outer corridors watching on screens. Across the galaxy, over 1 billion viewers tuned in to watch the human face the legendary Brutarian champion. Daewon woke early and went through his preparation routine. His body carried bruises and minor injuries from previous matches, but nothing that would stop him. He ate, hydrated, and focused his mind. Today would test everything he had learned, everything he had trained for. In the medical bay, a Galactic League physician examined him one final time. The doctor, a being with 6 tentacle-like appendages, moved scanning equipment over Daewon's body. Your injuries are healing well, the doctor observed. But I must inform you, this match carries significant danger. Fracker has sent 3 opponents to this medical bay with broken bones. 4 more required regeneration tanks. Are you certain you wish to continue? Yes, Daewon replied simply. The doctor's tentacles waved in what might have been a shrug. Humans. Stubborn species. Across the preparation hall, Vrakkar stood surrounded by his clan. They chanted war songs in the Brutarian language, building his energy and confidence. Fracker himself stood bare-chested, his 4 massive arms flexing and testing, his hide rippled with muscle, each movement displaying the raw power that had made him legendary. Today the insult ends, Vrakkar announced to his clan. Today I show the galaxy that primitives do not belong among warriors. The soft skin will beg for mercy, and I will show him none. His clan members roared their approval. Other warriors in the hall stayed quiet, uncertain which fighter to support. Many admired Daewon's skill and honor, but few believed he could defeat Vrakkar. The call came through the communication system. Semi-final match, Vrakkar versus Daewon. Competitors report to the arena. The walk to the entrance felt different this time. The crowd noise was deafening. Aliens of every species chanted and cheered. Some held signs supporting Vrakkar. Others, surprisingly, held signs supporting Earth and the human warrior. Day One had earned more support than anyone expected. He entered the arena tunnel and saw Vrakar waiting at the opposite entrance. Even from this distance, the size difference was dramatic. Vrakar stood 8 feet 2 inches tall, weighing over 400 pounds of pure muscle and thick hide. Day One, at 5 feet 10 inches and 180 pounds, looked tiny by comparison. They walked onto the platform together. The crowd's roar became physical, shaking the air itself. High Arbiter Thesic stood at the center waiting. His expression remained neutral, but his multiple eyes tracked both fighters carefully. "This is the semi-final match," Thesic announced, his voice cutting through the noise. "The winner advances to face Karath in the championship. The rules remain unchanged. No weapons, no killing strikes. Fight until submission or unconsciousness. Acknowledge." "Acknowledged." Vrakar's voice boomed across the arena. "Acknowledged," Day One replied calmly. They moved to opposite sides of the platform. Vrakar stared at Day One with pure contempt, all 4 arms spread wide in an intimidation display. The crowd loved it, cheering louder. Day One stood quietly, breathing steadily, centering his mind. He had studied dozens of hours of Vrakar's fights. He knew the Brutarian's patterns, his tendencies, his strengths, and his weaknesses. Now came the test of whether knowledge could overcome raw physical superiority. "Begin." Vrakar exploded forward with shocking speed for his size. He closed the distance in 2 massive strides, all 4 arms swinging in a coordinated attack pattern. Each fist could crush bone and dent steel. Day One dodged, rolling sideways as Vrakar's lower right fist slammed into the platform where he had been standing. The metal dented with a loud crash. The crowd gasped. "Stand still, soft skin." Vrakar roared, but Day One had no intention of standing still. He kept moving, using the full 50-meter diameter of the platform. Vrakar pursued with relentless aggression, throwing powerful combinations that would end the fight with a single clean hit. 5 minutes passed. Vrakar had not landed a solid strike. His fists came close, sometimes missing by inches, but Day One's defensive movement remained sharp. The crowd began to murmur in surprise. "Why does he run?" someone shouted. "The human is afraid," another voice answered. But on the observation deck, Myra saw the truth. "Look at Vrakar's breathing. It is heavier already. The human is not running. He is making Vrakar work." Day One understood something fundamental that the crowd did not. Brutarians evolved as ambush predators. They possessed incredible strength and speed, but only in short bursts. Their biology favored explosive power over sustained endurance. Every second Vrakar spent chasing and throwing heavy strikes depleted his energy reserves. Humans, on the other hand, evolved as persistence hunters. They could run for hours, could maintain activity for days if necessary. Day One's steady breathing and efficient movement meant he could continue this pace far longer than Vrakar could maintain his explosive attacks. 10 minutes passed, then 15. Vrakar's movements began to slow slightly, his breathing becoming labored. The crowd noticed the change. The cheering diminished, replaced by confused murmuring. "Impossible," someone whispered. Vrakar never tires, but he was tiring. For the first time in his 12-year career, Vrakar faced an opponent who could outlast him. The realization showed in his eyes, a flicker of something he had never felt in the arena before. Doubt. Day One sensed the shift and changed his approach. He stopped pure defense and began counterattacking. When Vrakar threw his next combination, Day One slipped inside the reach of those massive arms and struck precisely at nerve clusters in the Brutarian's sides. Vrakar roared in pain and surprise. The strikes were not powerful enough to cause real damage, but they targeted specific points where nerves clustered close to the skin. Accumulated pain began to affect Vrakar's coordination. "Fight me properly," Vrakar demanded, his voice carrying frustration and anger. Day One said nothing. He continued his strategy, dodging major attacks and responding with precise strikes to vulnerable points: the knees, the inside of elbows, the nerve clusters along the ribs. Each strike individually was minor, but together they accumulated into significant impairment. 20 minutes into the match, Vrakar was breathing heavily. His movements had slowed noticeably. Sweat covered his hide, and his 4 arms moved with less coordination. The legendary champion was experiencing something he had never felt: fatigue affecting his performance. The crowd sat in stunned silence. This was not the dominant Vrakar they knew. This was a warrior struggling against a smaller, supposedly weaker opponent. In desperation, Vrakar attempted his signature finishing move. He raised all four arms and brought them down in a crushing overhead attack that had ended dozens of fights. The power behind the strike was still formidable, capable of breaking bones and rupturing organs. Daewon saw it coming. He had watched this move in footage countless times. As the forearms descended, he stepped forward instead of backward, moving into Vrakar's body where the arms could not reach. At the same moment, Vrakar's arms slammed into the platform behind Daewon. The champion caught the Brutarian's wrist and used his forward momentum to throw Vrakar off balance. The crowd gasped as Vrakar stumbled forward, his massive body fighting for balance. Daewon moved with him, maintaining control. He wrapped his arms around Vrakar's thick neck, positioned his body weight, and squeezed. It was a chokehold that cut off blood flow to the brain, not air to the lungs. Vrakar thrashed, trying to use his superior strength to break free. But Daewon's position was mechanically sound, using leverage and technique rather than matching strength against strength. Vrakar's hands reached up, trying to grab Daewon. But after 20 minutes of intense fighting, his coordination was too diminished. His movements became weaker. The legendary champion, undefeated for 12 years, felt consciousness beginning to slip away. In a last desperate attempt, Vrakar tried a forbidden move. One of his arms reached for Daewon's throat, fingers extending toward a killing strike. High Arbiter Thesic shouted a warning, preparing to intervene, but Vrakar stopped himself. Even in desperation, even facing his first defeat, the champion's honor held. He would not break the rules. His hand fell away from Daewon's throat and slapped the platform 3 times. Tap, 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 submission. Daewon released immediately and stepped back. Vrakar collapsed to one knee, gasping for air, his vision clearing slowly. The arena was absolutely silent. 200,000 beings sat frozen in shock. Then High Arbiter Thesic's voice rang out, breaking the silence. "Winner, Daewon of Earth." The crowd exploded. Half erupted in cheers, amazed by what they had witnessed. The other half sat in stunned disbelief, unable to process that the legendary Vrakar had lost. Fights broke out in some sections between supporters of different species. Daewon walked over to Vrakar and extended his hand. The Brutarian looked at the offered hand for a long moment, emotions warring across his face. Pride, shame, anger, and finally, grudging respect. Vrakar took the hand and allowed Daewon to help him stand. "You are a true warrior," Vrakar admitted, his voice quiet enough that only Daewon heard. "I underestimated your species. I will not make that mistake again." 2 days passed between the semi-final and the championship match. 2 days that changed everything for Earth's position in the galaxy. News of Daewon's victory over Vrakar spread to every corner of known space. Social networks overflowed with debate. Traditional media devoted entire programs to analyzing the human fighting style. The Galactic Council held emergency sessions. Earth had been granted membership 3 years ago, but held minimal influence. Most established species viewed humans as primitive newcomers, who needed centuries to become relevant. But Daewon's success forced them to reconsider. A species that could produce such warriors deserved respect. Ambassador Sora found herself suddenly important. Species that had ignored her requests for meetings now sought her out. Trade agreements that had been rejected were reopened for discussion. Military alliances became possible. All because one human proved that Earth's warriors could compete with the galaxy's best. On Vexor Prime, Daewon spent the time in focused preparation. His body carried the accumulated damage from 5 hard fights. Medical staff offered regeneration treatments, but Daewon declined anything beyond basic pain management and wound care. He wanted to win with his natural abilities, nothing enhanced or modified. He studied footage of Karath obsessively. The apex predator warrior was the most dangerous opponent he would face. Karath stood 9 feet tall with 4 arms like Vrakar, but his advantages went far beyond size and strength. His species possessed regenerative abilities that could heal wounds within minutes. His skin secreted paralytic toxins that affected anyone who touched him. His bones were dense enough to withstand tremendous impacts. Most terrifying was his combat record. 8 championships across different combat leagues, over 200 victories. Only 3 losses in his entire career, and those were early in his training when he was young and inexperienced. For the past decade, Karath had been unstoppable. This will be different. Tae-Yang warned through the communication link from Earth. His regeneration means your accumulated damage strategy will not work. The toxins mean grappling is dangerous. His speed and strength match or exceed anything you have faced. I know, Daewon replied calmly. Send me everything you have on nerve cluster locations for his species. If he can regenerate flesh, I need to target things that regenerate more slowly. Tae-Yang worked through the night, compiling every bit of biological data available about apex predators. He sent detailed diagrams showing nerve pathways, joint structures, and organ placements. Daewon memorized every detail. The day of the championship arrived. The grand arena transformed into something beyond a sporting venue. It became the center of galactic attention. Every major species sent representatives. The crowd included government leaders, military commanders, and cultural icons. This was not just a fight anymore. It was a statement about humanity's place in the galaxy. Daewon entered the preparation hall and found it strangely quiet. Most warriors had already been eliminated and returned home. Only a few remained to watch the final match. Fracker was there. His clan gathered around him. When he saw Daewon, the Brutarian stood and approached. Human, Fracker said formally, I wish you victory today. You have earned the right to be called warrior. If you defeat Karath, you will have earned the right to be called champion. Thank you, Daewon replied, genuinely moved by the respect from his former opponent. Jara appeared from another section, her crystalline body reflecting the lights. The galaxy watches today. Win or lose, you have already changed how we see humans, but I hope you win. Other warriors approached to offer similar sentiments. Daewon realized that he had done something unexpected. He had earned the respect of beings who initially saw him as a joke, not through boasting or showmanship, but through skill, honor, and determination. The call came through the system. Championship match Karath versus Daewon. Competitors report to the arena. The walk to the entrance felt longer than before. The weight of expectations pressed down. Billions watched. Earth's future diplomatic position depended partly on this outcome. But Daewon pushed those thoughts aside and focused on the fight itself. Nothing else mattered right now. He stepped onto the platform and the crowd noise was overwhelming. The arena shook with cheers and chants. Karath entered from the opposite side, his massive form moving with predatory grace. His forearms swung loosely and his mouth showed multiple rows of sharp teeth in what might have been a smile. They met at the center where High Arbiter Thesic waited. Standing next to Karath made the size difference even more dramatic. The apex predator towered over Daewon, and his arms were each thicker than Daewon's entire torso. This is the championship match, Thesic announced. The rules remain as they have been. No weapons, no killing strikes, fight until submission or unconsciousness. This is your final chance to withdraw with honor. He looked at Daewon when he said it. Karath's smile widened. The crowd held its breath. I do not withdraw, Daewon said clearly. Nor do I, Karath added. Let us begin. They moved to opposite sides of the platform. Daewon took slow, deep breaths. This was it. Everything he had trained for. Everything he had fought for. One more battle. Begin! Karath moved faster than Fracker. Faster than any opponent Daewon had faced. The apex predator closed the distance in an instant, all forearms striking in a coordinated pattern. Daewon dodged, but barely. One of Karath's hands grazed his shoulder, and Daewon felt the toxins immediately. A numbing sensation spread through his left arm. The crowd gasped. First blood went to Karath. Daewon backed away, testing his left arm. The numbness was spreading, but slowly. He had maybe 10 minutes before it became completely useless. He needed to adjust his strategy immediately. Karath pressed the attack, not giving Daewon time to recover. Unlike Fracker, Karath did not waste energy on wild attacks. Every strike had purpose, every movement was efficient. He fought with the skill of someone who had dedicated his life to combat. 5 minutes into the match, Daewon had taken several more hits. His left arm was nearly paralyzed. His ribs ached where Karath's fists had connected. The crowd sensed what they were seeing. Daewon's first defeat. But Daewon was not defeated yet. He changed tactics using one-armed fighting techniques that humans had developed over millennia. When your opponent has superior strength and natural weapons, you use angles and leverage. You accept pain and continue fighting. Daewon struck at Karath's nerve clusters, the same ones Tae-Yang had identified. The apex predator barely reacted. His pain tolerance was extraordinary, and any damage Daewon inflicted healed within minutes. You are good, human, Karath acknowledged. Better than most I have fought. But you cannot win. I am superior in every way that matters. Daewon did not respond with words. He continued fighting, adapting, learning. Even in the middle of losing, he studied Karath's patterns. Every fighter had patterns. Every biology had limits. Then he noticed something. When Karath regenerated from strikes to his limbs, the healing was visible and fast. But when Daewon had struck near major joint connections, the regeneration seemed slightly slower. The nerves in those areas were thicker, more complex. It was a small observation, barely noticeable. But humans had evolved to notice small things. Humans were persistence hunters who tracked prey for days by noticing tiny details. Daewon filed the information away and kept fighting. 20 minutes into the match, both fighters showed damage. Daewon was bruised and bleeding from several cuts. His left arm hung useless at his side, but Karath was breathing harder than he expected. The human's endurance was remarkable, and Karath had expended significant energy maintaining his aggressive pace. Daewon shifted his entire strategy. If he could not damage Karath faster than the apex predator could heal, he needed to target things that healed more slowly. He began focusing exclusively on the nerve clusters at major joints, hitting the same spots repeatedly. Karath noticed the pattern change. Trying something new? It will not save you. But after another 5 minutes, Karath's movements changed slightly. The accumulated nerve damage was affecting his coordination. Not much, but enough that Daewon could work with it. The match entered its 30th minute. Karath had never fought this long before. His opponents usually fell within 10 minutes. The regeneration, the toxins, the superior strength, they always proved decisive quickly. But the human kept fighting, kept adapting, kept finding ways to continue. Why do you not quit? Karath demanded, genuine confusion in his voice. You cannot win. You are damaged, tired, and I will regenerate everything you do to me. Daewon finally spoke, his voice steady despite his exhaustion, because humans do not quit. That is what you do not understand. We do not have claws or armor or regeneration, but we have something else. We keep going. The word seemed to strike something in Karath. For the first time in the fight, a flicker of doubt crossed his face. He had superior biology, superior training, superior everything, but did he have superior will? Daewon pressed the attack with renewed energy. He accepted the pain of his injuries and continued targeting the nerve clusters. His strikes became more precise, born from 30 minutes of constant study. Each hit landed exactly where he intended.